All right, in transit today has a special guest. Aref Salem is the leader of Ensemble Montreal, and he joins us on the line. Mr. Salem, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Elias.
First things first, we took great interest into a press release from your party this week. Your Ensemble Montreal is making a plea for the creation of a bike and pedestrian bridge between RDP and Laval. This is a link that would help put together and link 70,000 residents if that pedestrian and bike bridge was built. Let me ask you about this, because I'll tell you something. On this show, when Projet Montreal talks about we're going to build a bike pathway, we're going to do this, I hear it from listeners, and they hate every single bike path. Doesn't matter where it is, they hate it. So make the case here, because you're the opposition party. You're making a case here that this would be really valuable. Tell our listeners about it.
Well, basically, as you said, Elias, there is around 70,000 people that they live on both sides of in Laval and in RDP. The thing is, we invest all the money for cyclist bike paths. It's in the middle of Montreal. We're talking about Plateau Rosemont. The east part of Montreal, there is nothing there, and we find an opportunity because there is money coming from the metropolitan community of Montreal. There is money coming from the government of Quebec. So we found an opportunity to ask for a study, to update the study that exists, and make sure, this part of the city, they can have at least a bike path and pedestrian path. And eventually, we know that if one day the train comes to Rivière des Prairies, at least we can have a path that brings people from Laval to this train.
And that's important, right? Because if you're going to build a pathway like this, you're also going to need other infrastructure to link with it, right? So it's one thing if you build a bike bridge between RDP and Laval, but then on either side, there's not other bike paths so people can continue their journey. It's sort of like wasted money here. So let's talk about vision here. For Ensemble Montreal, is your vision include more bike paths, more bike lanes as you pull for infrastructure like this?
There's one already. There's one on Gouin. So there's a bike path on Gouin. And eventually, we will have a network in the area. And as you know, every single borough, they're building their own network. So, and you know what? The thing is, the whole Montrealers residents pay taxes for the city. But the city, they invest, just in one part of the city, in the center of the city. So these people, they need, they need to have their bike paths too in this area. And, we have numbers. There's one bike path on a 25. Last year, we count around 83,000 users. So in 1 year, I think there is an opportunity there. There is money coming from other level of governments. And we can at least make sure we can build it in there. And as I told you, eventually with the train, we can have a network bringing people to the station.
Okay, so this
when it comes.
And this is why it's such a curious issue. I find the debate, the politicization of bike paths, I always find it a little bit curious. Now, I recall in Park Extension, okay, when they just put in a whole bunch of bike paths, I had members of your party come on this show, and they're not in favor of it, right? They say they shouldn't have put these bike paths in the way that they put them in, right? And what we heard from Projet Montreal at the time kind of reminded me of what you just said, because what they were saying is, hey, there are bike paths in the Plateau, and there are bike paths in Hochelaga-Maisonneuve, and there are bike paths all over, but the people in Park X deserve bike paths like the rest of the people nearby, right? So I guess because you just said that, hey, that something very similar, right? That everyone, even if you're in the East, you deserve a bike path. You deserve the same type of infrastructure. So would you say you're in alignment with Projet Montreal on bike paths?
The difference between us and Projet Montreal is the consultation, the public consultation.
Uh-huh.
What they did in Park X, they forced the bike path into the streets by taking off around 261 parking place. What we are saying, this is not the way to do it. We're not there to inform the population. We're not there to force them to accept the bike path. We're there to make sure that with the public consultation. We can consult them. We can make sure at least that, when we create a problem of parking, we will try to find a solution for this problem. We have to accommodate the population that they live in the streets. So coming and saying we are going to put a bike path. We don't care what you think. We don't care how do you think it. We're going to implement it. Well, this is not the way that Ensemble Montreal works. We did an example on Laurier Street. I had around 25 meetings with the businesses there just to let them accept the fact that there is cyclists that they pass on Laurier Street. And back then, we didn't hear any problem of implementing a bike path on Laurier. So the difference between Ensemble Montreal and Projet Montreal, it's the time that we should take with the population to let them accept the project and having a real public consultation. I just remind you, Camillien Oud, 12,000 people, they said they don't want it. Now they came back, and they put it. So this is the difference between Ensemble Montreal and Projet Montreal.
Okay, so I get the consultation bit, but at the end of the day, the vision for your party, Ensemble Montreal, is a Montreal, an island of Montreal that has a much more robust bike path network.
Well, having a secure bike path, for sure. But, once again, it has to be done with the population and a real public consultation.
Sure, and I get that, but it's almost like promising the impossible, because if you have more bike paths, someone has to pay for it in the sense there's only limited space, because we can't magically invent more room on streets that have already been built, right? So if you put in a bike path, while either a lane of car traffic or a lane of parking has to go, you upset someone either way. So again, I guess the question is, the Ensemble Montreal vision is also one where we have an increase of bike paths.
An increase of bike path, with the vision. And once again, I know it's hard to accept any transformation in any streets. This is it's hard to accept. Yeah. But the thing is, when we bring the population in a public consultation and we tell them, probably we have to change the sign of streets. Probably it doesn't have to be two ways. Probably it has to be one way. So we will have more space. There is places in curbs. There is a huge parking spot real to curbs. We could have go with the people and tell them there is an alternative instead of parking in front of your door. There is on 405 Ogilvie, there is a parking there. Can we talk with the owner of the building? Can we give you permit to stay there? So we have to find solutions when we create problems, and that's what Projet Montreal is not doing basically.
Okay, let me turn our attention here to vision on public transit. We got the Quebec budget yesterday. No money, a real hole for public transit. I know people are worried. And this morning there's reports of a vision by some people, including Projet Montreal, on more tramways for public transit in this city. What's your vision there on public transit? There's clearly a budget shortfall. What do you say?
It's good to dream. And Projet Montreal, actually, today, they're dreaming, and, there's nothing to dream. The problem that we have to maintain the infrastructure that we have. We have to maintain the network that we have, and we have to remember that 70% of the Montreal metro network has reached its end of life. You remember last April, the STM had to interrupt the services for hours when they discovered the crack in the subway in the Green Line. So what we should do, we should at least start by maintaining. The other thing is, can you remember, the pink line that the mayor said she's going to build in 6 years ago? Where is it now? She had the Caisse de Dépôt. They had $10 billion to invest in the east part of Montreal. They killed it. The mayor, she sits on the STM, on the ARTM board. She didn't even has the leadership to go ahead and tell them, we want it, we can try to find a solution, but no, she killed it. Any project, the problem that we have at the city right now, it's a lack of leadership of the administration, it's a lack of leadership of the mayor. Before having a budget in Quebec, she should have sit with the minister. Did you hear her, did you hear any minister come to Montreal and sit with her and tell her, what do you need for Montreal? Is it the housing? We know that the housing is a problem. We don't have much money for the housing for Montreal. We know that the mobility is a problem right now. We need to maintain the network that we have. She didn't even fight for her citizens. That's what's revolting with this administration.
We got to leave it there, Mr. Salem. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's always a pleasure, Elias.